Hello, Dr. Moataz.
Hello, dear Jean.
Yes. Hello, everybody. How are you today? This is Ajahn from COXO. Today, it's our pleasure to invite Dr. Moataz from Egypt to share his rich experience on endodontics. So now, let's welcome Dr. Moataz. Please.
Thank you, dear Ajahn. I would like to extend my thanks to COXO Company for this invitation and leave the space to me to meet our colleagues from all over the globe. I hope it will be a beneficial lecture. It will reveal the backside of the ancient dentistry or ancient endodontics from all over the world. Let's start our lecture today, and I hope to see you at the end of the lecture with any question if it is there is a space to give me. Okay. Now, from ancient to modern endodontics, the way you think, the way you manage. Sorry, just try to. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Moataz Al Khawas. I'm associate professor and head of the endodontic department at Al Azhar University in Cairo. All these my barcodes for the Facebook page and my website, and this is reveal my website drmoatazalkhawas.com. If anybody interested in my scientific activities, you can communicate with me at any time. It is my pleasure. And let's start today. From ancient to modern endodontics, first we have to ask ourselves an important question: where we were, where our godfathers of endodontics started. The evolution of endodontics was a gradual process with interrelation with other branches such as microbiology, physiology, pathology, anatomy, dental materials, and so on. That's why we have to know the ancient history of endodontics. So, what's the value of knowing this ancient history of endodontics? It will give us a very important clinical experience regarding what we were while what we are, and now where we will be in the future. The oldest root canal treatment was found in the skull of Nabatean warriors around 200 BC, and the Babylonian kingdom it was present 200 BC at the Red Sea coast. It extends from Hejaz to Damascus. They found in a skull of Nabatean birds about 2.5 millimeter of bronze wire, and it was the first ancient root canal filling found in the archaeology. Later, between 1200 and 1300 BC, the ancient Egyptian was very famous in medicine, and they found that what's called anesthesia papyrus. This anesthesia papyrus is present in the British Museum, and they suggested what's called the worm theory, as the tooth is affected by a worm, and they expected the presence of a metal root canal treatment, and they did a metal root canal treatment to relieve pain. Later, during the 14th century, we see the Chinese, the ancient Chinese, was very famous in dentistry and in endodontics, especially in 14th century BC. Their language character for cares was composed of a worm on the top of the tooth, as taken by the ancient Egyptian. While later, 200 AD, they are using arsenicals to treat bulbitis, and they used it exclusively for the first time in the world that any civilization used such things for bulb. Later, in 659 AD, they were far ahead of other civilizations due to they fill the cavities with specific materials. In the modern endodontics, Pierre Fischer, who first introduced the concept of endodontics in 1728, his book displays the worm theory, and he cited the presence of the dental bulb for the first time in the life. Later on in 1756, the initial bulb capping procedures was given by Philip, who used gold and lead for this procedure to cap the bulb tissue. And these procedures start, and there are multiple advancements during that century regarding the pulp capping agents. In 1838, Edwin Maynard the first endodontic instrument, which was the barber brooch. He made it from the watch spring by filing a watch spring and to try to extirpate the pulp tissue from inside the root canal system. In 1864, the first use of rubber dam was done by Christie Parnor in 19th century, and nowadays we have a multiple advancement for rubber dam devices and rubber dam facilities and modalities of the clamps to catch all situations in endodontic practice. In 1857, the first recommendation by Watt to use the gutta percha in endodontic practice, while actually in 1867, Bowman, who demonstrated the use of obturation materials, the gutta percha, in obturation materials in 1867. In 1867, also, the Magitot used the electric pulp testing for checking the vitality of the dental bulb, while in 1885, the first attempt to use the formalin and formalin components, which is a formaldehyde, to fix the bulb stamp to relieve pain, while in 1890, Cram introduced what's called the copper points for obturation of the root canal system. Later on in 1895, which is the golden year for the dentist. Röntgen changed the face of the science by inventing the X-rays in the dental medicine, in the medicine generally, and in dental medicine in specific. Actually, the commercial X-ray machines was introduced a few years after 1895. Okay, now in 1908, the first diagnostic wire was used to determine the working length in endodontics. In 1920, the first use of calcium hydroxide to fill and treat the infected root canals, and this is the introduction of the cooperation between the endodontics and the microbiology by culturing bacteria from inside the root canal system, and they found that calcium hydroxide is a powerful material to fill and treat infected root canals. And as we all know, calcium hydroxide is still up to date. We are using to manage infection of the root canal system. In 1925, the first introduced sealer to seal the root canal space between the gutta-percha cones and the dentinal wall of the root canal, and it was considered also the golden year in the era of dentistry. In 1933, the first introduction of the silver pines that was developed by Jasper to be included as an obturating material in a trial to improve the antibacterial effect of the obturating material instead of the gutta-percha. In 1957, EDTA, which is ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, was developed by Ostby to be introduced in irrigation of the root canal system. And actually, the movement to a next level of endodontics, especially in the field of retro instrumentation, was done by Walia in 1988, which introduced the magic properties of a corrosion-resistant alloy of the nickel titanium alloys. And actually, Walia was introduced the first nickel titanium instruments in the market, or it helped in introducing the first nickel titanium alloy and introducing first nickel titanium instrument in the dental field. And actually moving to a next step of endodontics by Dr. Trabanjad and his co-workers in 1993, while introducing what's called mineral trioxide aggregate as a retrograde filling material and for furication repair material. Nowadays, we have a BioCeramics. All these BioCeramics have a revolution in endodontic practice that represent a big challenge to all dentists use it correctly in a way that preserve the natural structure, such as the cementum, the dentin, and the periodontal tissues. That where we were. Now the question is where we are. We have a multiple advancement in all subspecialty of endodontic practice and in all procedures for serving of a perfect root canal treatment. First of them, which is the modern advances in access cavity preparation. Nowadays, we have multiple modifications of the access cavity that was reviewed in the literature. We ranged from conventional access cavity approach toward a keras-driven access cavity, ultra-conservative access cavity approach, truss access cavity. All of them are modified access cavity designs of the conventional access cavity. They serve to preserve the natural tooth structure and to avoid endangering the tooth structure by root canal treatment. Actually, the ultra-conservative access cavity design, or what's called ninja access cavity design, is not recommended by many authors due to improper cleaning and shaping of the root canal system, as we all see in the literature during the last 3 years. Now we are moving from the access cavity towards the complex in canal morphology. And complex in canal morphology, we have different techniques to evaluate the complexity of canal morphology, ranging from clearing and staining the root canal system using the clearing method, toward using comp beam CT, and nowadays we are using a micro CT in endodontics to explore the complexity in canal root canal system. Unfortunately, micro CT is still nowadays we are not able to use it in the clinical practice, but just we are working on it when we are dealing with the research work. But actually, micro CT give us a very important idea regarding the complexity, how it is of the root canals, especially at the apical third of the root canals, including apical delta system, ramifications, lateral canals, and accessory canals. Now, it is the rule of the modern shaping of the root canals. A step was done from the manually operated instruments toward using a low-speed instruments with latch type attachment, toward engine-driven continuous rotation nickel titanium instruments up to date, and using nickel titanium instruments for 3D shaping, engine-driven reciprocating night eyes, and using the ultrasonic instruments. Actually, the moving from the manual stainless steel instruments toward nickel titanium rotary instruments is a big step in endodontics. Actually, this is because the drawbacks of the manual stainless steel instruments is evident, such as it is a time-consuming, the pre-extrusion behind the apex with filing motion, sorry, iatrogenic mishaps, less predictable shapes in curved canals. But still, the manual instruments have a rule, especially in case of severely curved canals, in non-restricted canals. It is a manual game. I believe that we cannot exclude the manual stainless steel instruments at all, but you can use manual stainless steel instruments to serve in difficult cases that we are not able or we are not confident with the rotary instrument to use in such cases. While the advancement of rotary instrumentation from about the 2000 till 2021, we have multiple confliction and multiple confusion regarding using of a multiple file system or single file system, asymmetrical cross-sectional or asymmetrical cross-section, using a crown down technique or using what's called single lens manner, using rotary instruments or even using the reciprocating files. But it is evident that the greatest step from using the austenitic night eye towards the martensitic or what's called M-wire, and nowadays we are talking about what's called a CM-wire controlled memory files, is a big step in endodontics because it allows us to manage severely curved canals, to manage S-shaped canals, to manage all shapes of the root canals very efficiently without stresses on the instruments like before when using the austenitic nickel titanium instruments. As an example today of the controlled memory files, we can see a SucoPro rotary instrument. SucoPro rotary instrument is characterized by it is a controlled memory file. As we see the flexibility of the instrument with a variable taper, and also we have what's called the complex triangle to allow for better cutting efficiency. Now, this is the technical use of SucoPro. We have we have an orifice opener for coronal pre-flaring or even coronal flaring, size 17 taper 8, followed by size 19 taper 2 for glide path. When we are using a rotary glide path instruments, you can use this instrument, followed by size 20 0.04 and size 25 0.04, size 20 0.06, and size 35 with a taper 4. You can use all these instruments ranged from that you can use it ranging from non-restricted canals, severely curved canals, strip canals, toward using it in a narrow and in a wide canals. But actually, in such cases, in case of non-restricted canals, I prefer to use a master apical file up to a size 25, not more, to avoid endangering the original shape of the root canals. And also, I believe that the activation of the root canal system has a role to assist, for a great extent, the rotary instruments to perform a perfect cleaning and shaping of the root canal system. And this is a case, one of the most toughest cases that I have seen in the practice. This is an upper six with a communication with the maxillary sinus. By the way, this is a wife of one of the well-known dentists in Egypt. He went with his wife to an implantologist, and he believed that he need to preserve the tooth. The implantologist told his wife that you have to practice the tooth, make a socket preservation. After 6 months, we have to perform an implant surgery. So now I want to make a stress on the difficulty of the case. We have a severely curved or dilacerated mesial root. We have an S-shaped distal root, and the problem is the root canals, the pucker root canals, were calcified. As we see in the distal root, there's a abrupt curvature at the middle third, and actually the middle cell of the distal root, while the mesial root, as we see, there is no entrance of the files. It was a very tough case because there is a calcified mesiobuccal and MP2 canals. Just I use the instruments, manual instruments using size K, size 8, 10, and 15 K files in a wedge winding motion till reaching to the full working length, followed by using Sucopro instruments to clean or to instrument the root canals to the full working length. And this is after using Sucopro for cleaning, for full instrumentation of the root canals. Now, this is the final post-operative radiograph before post-anchor construction and after post-anchor construction. And after I managed the case, I was very satisfied because I tried to preserve the tooth in its place, and I succeed to do that. In the same way, there is no perfect cleaning and shaping without perfect 3D obturation of the root canal system. Where we were, we have a ghetto Persia in a cold state, but nowadays we have a warm vertical compaction technique, which is very efficient to fill the complex root canal system by its flowability of the ghetto Persia. And this is an example also when I use the Suco profile followed by 3D obturation of the root canal system. Now, moving to a next step, when I fail to perform successful non-surgical root canal treatment or even retreatment, I have to go to endodontic microsurgery. But nowadays, we have a great advancement in the tools and devices that's already used, not only in endodontics, but also you can use it in surgical intervention for implant dentistry or even for sinus lifting, something like this. This is a case, there is a apical transportation at the distal buccal root, and also we have a perforation, apical perforation at the mesio-buccal root canal. Sorry. First I removed the gutta percha from inside the root canals. I tried to remove the gutta percha, but unfortunately the extended gutta percha beyond the root apex, I failed to remove it. That's why I try to, with a persistent pain from the patient side. That's why I did everything. I made a orthograde MTA for all of the root canals to avoid retrograde filling. And actually, also we have a research work that found there is no difference between the sealing ability of the orthograde MTA and retrograde MTA. That's why in most of my cases, not all cases, but in most of my cases, I did uh, actually an ortho MTA followed by a surgical intervention. Sometimes when I cannot locate the root canals, I can do retrograde cavity, retrograde filling, and go to the traditional way of surgical intervention. And now this is the preoperative radiograph, the preoperative photograph after I finished the case non-surgically. And now this is the flap design. Usually I prefer using a triangular flap design, or sometimes I can use a rectangular flap design. And now retracting the flap, as we see, 2 millimeter in the axial incision, 2 millimeter toward the cervical to avoid endangering of the papilla. And now I try to negotiate or determine the area that I need to start the surgical intervention in. This is followed by, as we see, using a piece of surgery to try to do what's called an episectomy. And after I did the episectomy using the piece of surgery and I removed a block of bone, after that I reached to all of the uh, root canals using root resection. And in this case, due to I failed to negotiate the root canals non-surgically, that's why I went to retrograde MTA followed by retrograde filling, as we see, using mineral trichloride aggregate. And now this is the rule of filling the bone cavity. I filled the bone cavity using a PRF. And now just I will put a collagen membrane to seal the defect. Just put PRF followed by collagen membrane in place to fill the bone cavity, and it will be guided for healing of the soft tissue after closing the suture. That we already have in our advancement, but the question now is where we will be. What's the future of endodontics? I believe that the future of endodontics is directed toward the digital dentistry, as endodontics is a part of all branches, other branches in dentistry. We need a digital dentistry. That's why we have to move to the next step of digital endodontics, which is guided endodontics. Actually, guided endodontics, is it available for all cases? Actually, I cannot see that it is available for all cases. I cannot do a guided endodontics for all cases, but actually, guided endodontics as a part of digital endodontics or digital dentistry is a very important step or a very important procedure that allows for a great solution in case when non-surgical treatment or retreatment failed, and also maybe I can use guided endodontics in surgical intervention. This is the case, as we see, there is a legit mesial canals. I tried to open the legit canals, but actually I failed. That's why I have to make another way of thinking. As I told you in the first of the lecture, the way you think, the way you manage. In this case, the difficulty in this case, it is a curved canal, and we have a multiple planes or multiple curves in the same route. That's why it is very difficult to perform a guided endodontics. As a guided endodontics, you usually use it in the straight part of the root canal. because you are not able to bypass the curvature. That's why we have to make a good solution of such cases. Starting with designing the glide path guide, as we see, we try to find the opening of the root canal. We have two calcified canals at the apical third and one at the middle third. So try to create a glide path guide. Now this is the guide. And I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Amr Tuhami because he did this guide for me. After I designed the guide with my dear colleague Dr. Amr, now it is the procedure of micro-guided glide path. I think maybe a new terminology, but actually it is coming. First, I put the guide and be sure that the guide is rested on the piece correctly. And after that, I usually use ultrasonic tips for a broken instrument to try to open, to refine just opening of the canal above the level of the curvature. After that, okay, after I reach it to the predetermined length, now there is a guided negotiation of the mesiobuccal canal. After that, I try to negotiate the canal, the rest of the canal manually after I opened the calcification. And now it is the time for the working length determination using electronic apex locator, cleaning and shaping of all of the root canals. For working length. Now activation of the irrigating solution, and I prefer to use ultrasonic for activating the irrigating solution. It is a very cheap and also valuable technique, and it will give a better result than manual dynamic activation. And now obturation, three-dimensional obturation of the root canal system. After I tried the master cones, I put an MTA sealer, and actually I use MTA sealer with a warm vertical compaction technique. Even there is a debate regarding this issue, but I actually use it for all of my cases. And this is the preoperative radiograph after negotiating the mesial canals, and this is the master cone and post-operative and 3 months follow-up as we see. So now it is the time of my home message to all followers. Where we were, there is a historical background regarding where we are of using the dental materials in endodontics and using different techniques in endodontics, and now moving from using the traditional ways of root canal treatment toward the modern endodontics. It is my thoughts regarding using the controlled memory files. I believe the controlled memory files are representing a big step for instrumentation of the root canals, because before controlled memory files, before using or before development of controlled memory files, we have multiple issues regarding management of dilacerated roots and something like this. Also, I believe that using the nanotechnology in endodontics, in dental materials, dental biomaterials that is already used in dental practice or endodontic practice will have a great role in the future to improve the sealing of the root canal system. And I believe the guided endodontics is coming, but actually it is a part of digital dentistry, but actually we have to select to properly select the case for guided endodontics. I hope this lecture was beneficial to all followers. And if there is any question, I am online with all of you to receive all of these questions, and I will answer on it as it will posted, inshallah. Thank you very much, and thank you again to company COXO and Master Sina for this invitation. I hope to see you in the future. Thank you. I try to find if there is any question now. Okay, I think there is no questions, but actually, if there is any later question, I will answer on the comments of the same post, same live. So thank you very much for your following this lecture. Hope to see you in the future, inshallah. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Dr. Moataz.
Thank you, Mr. Rajan. Nice to meet you again.
Yes, thank you for your nice sharing. So it seems there's no question now. I think no problem. You can say later if there's comments in our page, please come to answer.
Okay, no problem. I will answer if there is any question on the page.
So that's all for
Thank you.
today.
Goodbye.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. COXO have another service webinar in continue every week. So please stay tuned on our page. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.